Hey, family. What's up, YouTube? Another day to get better. Hope everybody's living well, learning a lot, but most importantly, applying some of that knowledge you're learning. So if you've been following my videos, you guys know that I battled with substance abuse throughout my life. And then I got sober going on almost 10 years ago. And the topic of this video is an article about sobriety. And basically, I think that I actually started my recovery when I dug all this material out and started making these videos. Otherwise, I was just in sobriety. I was maintaining my sobriety, maintaining my job, finishing up my education, honing a few skills and stuff that had to do with my job. But when it came to the inner work and working on like a vision for my life, goals, working on values, actually starting to sit and observe my thinking and actually pay attention to how my thoughts actually influence my actions and stuff like that. Say I just started. I've been doing that to some extent, but yeah. So sobriety, better than Prozac, is the name of the article here. Experts suggest that people in recovery are happier than their non-alcoholic peers. So ask the average newcomer. So this might have something to do with Alcoholics Anonymous programs. Yeah, I actually see the words in there. But so if it's not for you, it's not for you. But it's just information that I'm going to read, expose you guys to some new information that in hopes that it helps you or enlightens you on some information or some facts that you didn't know. It's something that you could actually apply to your life. Ask the average newcomer if they are happy, and assuming you don't get punched in the nose, you can almost guarantee they'll list misery, struggle, and withdrawal as their primary life experience. Struggle, withdrawal, and misery, struggle, and withdrawal as their primary life experience, huh? After a few years, though, most AA regulars utter statements about how they never knew they could be so happy. This is tempered, of course, with vague references to health, marital, and financial challenges, but the seasoned AA veteran understands these struggles as part of that larger practice of accepting life on life's terms. Knowing that life is hard, but not letting it keep you down for long. When I was new, I used to look around at the happy, sober people and think I'd stumbled on a secret society of blissed and spiritualists with horrible pasts. We are not a glum lot, says the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, referring to the often raucous and downright gleeful nature of many meetings. Standing outside of one, listening to the thrum of voices and laughter, it can sound like you're listening in on God's little antechamber of social hour. So are alcoholics and addicts in recovery in fact happier than other people? According to Christopher Murray, a New York-based psychotherapist, folks in recovery have learned to manage their emotions. Okay, so our thoughts, feelings, and emotions, behaviors, consequences. So they've learned to manage their emotions without reaching for a substance in order to let loose. Perhaps the step work and the sharing and anxious phone calls at 3 in the morning have taught them how to access all their feelings with greater ease. William Barry, a Psychology Today contributor and teacher, says recovery leads people down spiritual paths they might otherwise never have tried. Yeah, this stuff will lead you down paths that you weren't even aware of were there, or paths that you thought you never would try. But although programs of personal growth, faith, putting priorities in order, and supportive peers are available to everyone, recovering people are given more of an opportunity for happiness, he says. In other words, we're willing to do all the hard work because our very lives depend upon it. Of course, there are no guarantees. AA's foundation rests on the promises made in the Big Book, including the program linchpin that God wants us to be happy, joyous, and free. Dr. Ingrid Matthew, an LA-based psychotherapist and the author of Recovering Spirituality, Achieving Emotional Sobriety in Your Spiritual Practice, points out that people often mistakenly believe this means they'll always feel good, when what the promise of happy, joyous, and free really means is they'll feel good some of the time. She adds, anything that promises delight without acknowledging the shadow is false. Meaning, if you're looking for the big happy all the time, you're chasing the wrong goal. You need to strike a balance between expectation of unadulterated joy and finding satisfaction in occasional happiness and the struggle to improve. Perhaps the reason many of us look so fervently for happiness in recovery is that we feel entitled. We've give up our drug of choice, damn it, so let's have some happiness and pleasure. This sense of entitlement is often strengthened by the fear that we'll never recapture the joy of earlier days. As it happens, this fear is born out of neuroscientific research. Some addicts and alcoholics actually have to work harder to achieve happiness and pleasure than non-users. According to Dr. David Linden, a neuroscientist at Johns Hopkins University and the author of The Compass of Pleasure, How Our Brains Make Fatty Foods, Orgasm, Exercise, Marijuana, Generosity, Vodka, Learning, and Gambling Feel So Good. In his research, Dr. Linden studied the impact of low dopamine receptivity, a shared neurological trait of addicts and alcoholics. So he studied the impact of low dopamine receptivity on the ability of the brain to register pleasure. If you're a person with low dopamine receptivity, your brain is less able to register pleasure than those with normal levels of dopamine function. Such a person, therefore, has to overindulge in order to get to the same set points of pleasure. In other words, for some of us, it takes more pleasure-associated activities, that is, more sex, more food, and risk-taking, to feel the same amount of pleasure experienced by someone with normal brain dopamine function. On the upside, Dr. Linden argues that a person in recovery can learn to reactivate the pleasure center by doing things like exercise and having sex, taking care, of course, not to substitute one addiction for another, even discovering a new hobby or learning and studying something new can stimulate the pleasure center of the brain. Perhaps it's the conflation of pleasure and happiness that has people in recovery wondering why everyone else seems to have it all figured out. Yet joy doesn't come without that often uncomfortable process of letting go. Pain may be the touchstone of all spiritual growth, Matthew points out, but no one likes it. Whether you believe those happy, serene looking old timers when they say they are happy and their lives are beautiful is up to you. But it's clear from a biochemical as well as a spiritual perspective that the alchemy of AA does render many of us happy, or at least far happier than we were. Whether this comes from moments of pleasures linked together or an overarching sense of serenity and calm, or a belief in a higher power, or lives of happy usefulness, depends on the person. It's clear that AA is onto something. It's too bad you have to be an alcoholic to go to AA, my friend said recently. It seems like such a nice way to live your life. So yeah, I guess that's mostly about the Alcoholics Anonymous program, or maybe I got that in AA. I don't know. I attended AA several times. But the main thing I got out of this, mainly because it's in line with what I'm doing now, is folks in recovery have learned to manage their emotions. So emotional management is kind of the path that I'm on now, I guess. Yeah. And now I'm going to read another entry out of my nightly journal from the penitentiary program that I was in. And yeah, this one is November 11th of 2011. So 11/11/11. Maybe it'll be a good one. Let's see what we got. What was positive and what was negative about today? The positives were that we began our education on personal finance and credit repair today. I ran 10 seconds slower this week than last week on the 2-mile run, but I wanted to quit pushing as hard as I was, but I kept pushing to the end. The negative for today was having to eat so fast and not enjoy food. Yeah, you had to eat really quick in that military-based program. You had like 5 minutes in the head in the morning to brush your teeth, shave, and use the bathroom. You had to take 5-minute showers. You eat quick. You know, you get your food, you sit down, and they tell you to eat. You don't mess around, you eat. But what were the main feelings I experienced today? I am feeling motivated and encouraged because I am learning about so many resources to help me achieve my goals. What helped me make it through the day? My desire to learn about things that will help me live a more responsible lifestyle. What did I learn today? I learned that Veterans Day is to recognize the end of World War I that occurred in the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month of 1918. Veterans Day used to be called Armistice Day. All right, so since this was November 11th of 2011, that's why there was like a fact of the day or something to do with this date in our educational, vocational course that we were in. But so I learned that Veterans Day is to recognize the end of World War I that occurred. The end of World War I was the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. Okay. 1918. Well, guys, hope you got something out of that. That's my intention here, is that you hear something that catches your ear. So yeah, never give up. Keep pushing forward. Just because we've lived a certain way so long, our whole lives even, doesn't mean we have to continue to live that way. Thanks for watching. God bless. I'll see you in the next video.